Good day, my dear friends and relatives. My name is Tony Hilaire. My name is Satsumton. I come from Lummi. I'd like to thank you all for being here today. Special thank you to Councilman Solomon, Secretary of the Lummi Indian Business Council and the Black Hawk Singers. Thank you for sharing that song. Thank you to all of the past tribal leaders that are here. Some of them already left, but also thank you to the people that are here running through local office. I see Seth Fleetwood here and April Parker, Haishka for being here today. Also special thanks to Oren Lyons for traveling to be here from the Seneca Nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, a longtime lacrosse player and well-renowned advocate for Indigenous rights. Thank you for being here. We're hosted today by the Lummi Indian Business Council and the Children of the Setting Sun Productions to have a conversation on climate change with Chairman Jay Julius, Oren Lyons, Tom Sampson, Jewel James, and Jill Witt. In 2007, Oren Lyons spoke to the United Nations, and he quoted a man, and I'm sorry if I got his name wrong, Akio Matsumura, that value change for survival. If we don't change our values, we won't survive. And in response to that advice, we're here to have a conversation with these five to discuss the urgent need in our community, the challenges that we face, and everything that we need to do to change our perceptions, to change our values for the betterment of all humankind, as well as Mother Earth. So I think we'll start off with Chairman Julius to respond to that advice, and then we'll just go down the line and mainly have more of a conversation than just one question and then they each answer. And then I think we'll open it up for questions after that. Haishka.
Haishka, Tony, Daryl, all those who helped put this together, those who are here to witness. Thank you to Jewel and Tom and Jill for all of your work and the value you bring, each in your own way, and the example you guys have led by, the work you've done in the past to pave the way for these young ones, myself, and many others. You've guided us and shown us by example how to continue on this necessary work. Oren, it's an honor and a privilege to be sitting here today. Thank you for coming to Lummi Nation's homeland. I know there's a history here with yourself and past leaders. Sam Kagi, Vernon Lane was my grandfather, and many others, Willie Jones and Henry Kagi, and the list goes on and on and on. I'm just very honored and privileged to be here and to share a few ideas and thoughts and really listen and learn and love. I'm excited to grab onto the takeaways that I'm going to get from you, and the youth are going to get from each and every one of you. Lummi Nation is facing many climate change challenges, policies by policymakers from the past. We're living in the reality of those bad decisions that were made in the past that got us to where we are today. Really made it a focus to not point fingers and point blame because we don't have time. I'm of the belief, I quote Governor Inslee in Years of Living Dangerously. He said, "We are the first generation to feel the impacts of climate change, but we're the last generation who could do anything about it." And I really take that to heart. I personally was born a fisherman, put on the water and on a boat at a very, very, very young age. So just for myself, in the last 44 years, I've seen major change on the water, the river systems, the Salish Sea, the salmon, the herring, the orcas, and everything that is important to us as Native people, because for us here on the Northwest, 164 years ago is when we entered into our treaty in 1855. And in 1855, we often share, and when we have an opportunity to share with groups of people, whether it's a small group like this or Beth Brownfield inviting me to Portland to speak in front of 5,000 people, no matter the amount or who it is and what audience is, or Jill inviting me to speak on the stage with Al Gore and Governor Inslee, no matter who the audience is, it's a short period of time. My great-grandma, I walked this earth with and held her hand, and she was born in 1892. And she died when I was 5 in 1980. And one thing that really resonates with outsiders is I was one hug away, I was one handshake away from pre-contact. But they were raised, and I was raised by individuals who grew up with individuals who were here before there was contact. It wasn't that long ago. And the challenge I've found that we see all across Indian country is, how do you create empathy? How do you create empathy and understanding when we take our values and we live out our values even today? You witness today our culture and the importance of keeping that strong. How do you create empathy when the values of a country that we are a sovereign within are different and not in line with who we are still today and who we've always been for since time immemorial? We were great stewards of this land, and for us in particular, we're big on salmon. We're big on water, Salish Sea, the river systems, the streams, telling the story of what it once was. In 1855, when the treaty was signed, you can walk across the backs of salmon on every river. You look out into the Salish Sea, and all you see is this. And you look at testimony from 1927 in the land claims, the natives back then talk about this is all you would see. And it was as far down and deep as you could see with the eye. That's how rich this place was, this garden. And one thing I found interesting is tapping in to policymakers on the outside that we are partners with, that we are neighbors with. One thing that has really resonated is our beliefs. We all have a belief, most of us. Indigenous people believe in the Creator, we have a higher power, and those who are citizens of the United States or the United States itself, you look on every piece of money, it says, "In God we trust." And I don't know what the exact percentages are, but faith has somehow, or has been a way to create that empathy, I have found. And one of the questions that I pose to others when fighting to protect our sacred lands, our burial grounds, our treaty protected areas, our Salish Sea, when it's hard to create buy-in, and when jobs versus burial grounds of Indians is outweighed over here because of their values and economic development and things like that, and what we've witnessed over the last couple of centuries, I pose the question to a Christian: is the Jordan River sacred? If so, why? And what would you be willing to do way over here in this country were there proposed development and a proposal to dry up that river? There would be an uproar, even here in this country. Why? And then I pose the question, the water that Jesus was baptized in is long gone. It flowed into the Dead Sea. What makes it sacred? Why does it mean that much to our faith? And trying to create that empathy, because it's going to take a team, it's going to take a movement, it's going to take these youth working together with outside communities to really instill value change in this entire country, on this entire planet. And that's one thing I've found. And I just wanted to share that quickly because in my 8 short years of being elected to leadership on council, we faced gigantic battles against the largest coal port proposal in North America, proposed on our sacred lands, on our village site, and impacting our treaty rights. The breeding of invasive species in our waters, and then the collapse of those net pins, and then these invasive species going into our rivers systems while the salmon are running and trying to make it home. Habitat, culverts. We just won a Supreme Court case on culverts with Washington. So I just wanted to touch on that, but I'm really here to listen and share some thoughts. When I heard value change, when it comes to climate change, I think we're putting in that work. I see it all throughout Indian country and all throughout. I see it in many places, this desire to create change. And I think it starts on the outside. A lot of it is policymakers and acknowledging what policies got us to where we are today, and the justification for these policies that destroyed and capped off rivers, dried up rivers, consumption of water, pollution, fish consumption rates. The list goes on and on and on. How did we get here? But more importantly, policymakers making these decisions for us today, looking 7 generations ahead. How do we create that change? And I want to thank you for all of your work, each and every one of you, because I have taken a piece of each and every one of you, and I really value your leadership, your philosophies, your theories, your will, your courage, and I just thank each and every one of you for being here. Thank each and every one of you in the audience here for being here, and I look forward to this conversation. Haishka.
Asiam na shilachat. Listen kucho chay tia enik. Snes techot as walkwalta. Lilk sne schunengs snes stang. Squaws at the klingel. Nilkuchenis chay tia. Quail lok sene. Jalamuch de silsilalta. Tasak sanat as quechel. En ese techel se contig xes ne panax tlees xes saasang des kokol alleenings kuche nil tuag ones xene chalngo hu chitis xes khonengs de keis khwilngo altelngo nil kos tlees ne swalqo ne so chelks etlas ne techel et je enig. Et yn y gwyliau yw te etlas chlymu. Ach yn gysyt atlat etlas ti e. Has malach ac sy'n sgwyl. Has malach ac sy'n chalengen. Ik lysau so salewis sy'n gwawis yn ngangana. Awys gwche malach ac sy'n chwning at enig. Chwang lach sy'n elewch sy'n chale, sy'n jamach la. Chwang ag sgwils. Dat chwingus at at lningel ella at je enig. Heg sgwche ac yn chale ac sy'n chalengen ik sy'n snapanach. Awys malach. Nil sgwche nis jael lle gwyl ac sy'n chwningus dy sgwechalta. I first of all want to thank the Lummi people for organizing this gathering. I was told many years ago when you're grateful to someone that we must stand up. And I'm grateful to this man I've known for a while. It is said by our teaching, there will be a person who will come from where the sun rises, and he's going to bring a message to us. He's going to tell us things that they have experienced because they were the first ones to come in contact with what we call Nachalinguch, the first foreigners. And as we listen to these people who came to us, listen to the message about their experience and the lessons learned from where my friend comes from. My granddaughter married into a Mohawk some 16 years ago. It comes from Akwesasne. And she comes home every so often and talks to us about what they do. But today we gather together to share our experience and the knowledge that comes from ancient time. There's so many things that we have to say so that our children and the children not born yet have to know. It is not an easy time for all of us. I speak on a show in Victoria called Indigenous Voices. And I talk about the environment that my friend talks about. We said, the word environment talks about the land and what it is. And I always say to them, the first citizens of this land were not human beings. We were the last to be created, and we're not very good caretakers. My great-grandmother used to sit outside in the fall or in the summertime, and she'd talk to me at nighttime. The moon, look at it, grandson. The moon is tipping the sockeye into the ocean. Remember this moon. Don't forget it. And she told me too, you see this tree over here? It's winter time now. Look at it. It's got its winter coat on. And I used to ask my great-grandma, how do you know it's this coat? Well, it's called the moss that grows on a tree. It's real thick. And when the moss is like that, it's going to be a cold winter. All of our people knew these things. They learned to listen to the tree. They learned to listen to the moon. They learned to the messengers that the sun brings to us each day. Humans are the worst predators in the world. We have no boundaries. We tend to believe that if we make something new, it's going to be better tomorrow. When I listen to that kind of talk, and I'd speak at several universities, talking to young people, some of them are a fourth degree, lawyers, they're going to be law people, and they ask me, how do you know these things? I says, because I have a language. I listened to my great-grandma. She's the one that told me. My great-grandmother was 125 when she died. And I lived with her the first 7 years of my life. And I never spoke English till I went to school. And then I began to learn another language. But it's the experience of my friend here that talks so many times across the country and in other countries that we're grateful, or that you bring these messages not only here in North America, but across the world. Because the world has got to listen to us. We are the last place on earth. There's still a chance to save this planet. But if we don't listen to our history, to the history of this land, our children will have nothing to celebrate. The celebration of the coming of the salmon, the celebration of the first child born, these are going to disappear because we have not learned to listen. I listened to my great-grandma, my young friend here, talk about empathy. She used to cry when she talked to me. I want you to listen to me when I'm crying. And sometimes when she was crying, she'd sing the song of sadness, because maybe she knew what my future was going to be, the struggle that we face today. But we learned those songs. Every song belongs to somebody or something, whether it's the wolf, or the bear, the clam, the oyster, the crab, everything. They have their own songs and we don't know what they are. The trees tells us about the weather. The tree of a woman, she's a widow woman, she tells us about the coming of the wind, and she whispers to us. It's these kind of teachings that have gone, are not being talked about in the schools anymore. We talk about history, we talk about the environment, we forecast even tomorrow. For me, I'm just grateful to wake up in the morning and I say thank you, because it's only this day that I can celebrate and be grateful not only for each other, and grateful to my friend that's here and to the young leaders that are coming up. We have to learn to walk carefully, and we have to learn to listen. In early winter, our people go back to the longhouse and they sing their songs. A lot of people just say, well, they're just they're Indian dancing. They're not. They're bringing back the history of who we are. The songs of the bear, the songs of the wolf, the songs of the salmon, the songs of the killer whale. These are all songs that we know. Today's people have not learned that yet. They create values that are far beyond our ability to manage with them. Their talent is something we have to deal with. When I speak in Victoria on Indigenous Voices, I say the corporate world really runs this country. They are the government. It is not who gets elected. It is the Prime Minister, the presidents, and all the people who get elected in North America. They are not the leaders. The real leader is the guy who owns the money and the guy who can pay the people to do his job. We have to understand the corporate world. The corporate world can be useful if we have a say in how they do things. And we see that in Canada right now regarding the Kinder Morgan pipeline. The Prime Minister of that country promised us, we will listen to you and we will carefully make our own assessment based on your information. They haven't done that. So we learn our lesson then about who owns this country called North America. It is not those of you who vote. Your vote don't mean a heck of a lot when it comes to the value of the corporate world. And I tell that to the politicians in British Columbia. You better listen to your constituency. If you don't hear what they're saying, you have no business representing them. I'm not a very popular person when it comes to talking about politics, because I got out of it in 1983. I was chief of my village for 25 years, and I woke up one day and I said, that's it, no more. I will not be a messenger for the government, and I quit. I had no idea what I was going to do. My wife asked me, where are you going to work? I said, I don't know. What about the kids? I don't know. We're just going to have to work hard. And we did. So, Oren, I want to thank you for the words that you've brought not only here, but across the continent and other countries. You've been the voice from the east, from where the sun rises, they say. And that voice has been good for us. You've cautioned us, like many other leaders have cautioned us. I'm half Nez Perce. My mother was a Nez Perce woman. And her families went to war in this country. And one of the stories that I read from their history, when the Nez Perce were at war, and some of the Nez Perce and other tribes joined the army to fight against the Nez Perce. And they said, we were sad when we saw our brothers on the other side fighting against us. And that again is another lesson. Sometimes our people cross the line and they become part of the problem that we are striving to protect Mother Earth. So as we train our young leaders, we have to make sure they understand the values, the culture, the history, to make sure they understand what it is. The tiniest little ant is important to us. The serpent that crawls on the ground, they are messengers too. All of these things meant something to us. And maybe, Orrin, you didn't know you were talking about us, but you were in your talk across the country. So I want to thank you on behalf of the Coast Salish people and those of us who live what we call the Se'su Ostelnguch, the people who live at the edge of the water. I want to thank you for the words and the messages that you've brought, not only in this continent, but across the world. Ha'ich Qasib, Nashwaqwa.
Nyawahaskano. I said from our language, thank you for being well. That's our greeting. Scano, same word for peace. Nyawahaskano. And in our language, your answer is Kwasha Dogus. What you say is true. It's I was so pleased to come to Lummi Country again, and it's been on my mind for a long time. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Joy Grissom. Tahuni, not I'm Wolf Clan. And my mother was Wolf, Seneca Nation. My father was an Eel, Onondaga Nation. And to clarify the introduction, in the Haudenosaunee, we are matrilineal. We go by the mother's side for our identity. And when my mother came to Onondaga as a young lady, and my father married her and they raised a family, 6 boys and 1 girl. I was brought up at Onondaga. That's where I lived. But I was Seneca by my mother's side. All our family, 6 boys and 1 girl, Seneca. And then they asked me to sit on the Onondaga Council, and my youngest brother, Kingsley Lyons. And we were quite young at the time. And she said, the clan mother, Rita Peters, she was holding 5 titles because there were 4 other clan mothers that were MIA somewhere. So she had these titles. She had to fill them titles. And we have a process within the Haudenosaunee, what people call Six Nation. French call us Iroquois. English call us Six Nations, and our proper name, Haudenosaunee. That's Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, Tuscarora. That's our confederation, the old. And we have adoption policies in our confederation. And so part of the process of becoming on the Chiefs Council, Leaders Council, have to be Onondaga. So I had to consider with my younger brother, we would have to go and we would have to take our name off the Seneca Nation and be adopted into the Onondaga Nation. It's a long process, and you can't do one without the other. So I asked my youngest brother, and I said, Rita says you should come along with me. Now, he was pretty wild, and I was pretty wild myself. He said, well, what do you think? I said, I don't know. She wants you to come with me. He said, okay. So we went to the leadership of the Seneca Nation, Cattaraugus, New York, and we told them what our ideas were and our position, that we had to remove ourselves now from the role of Seneca people. They were reluctant to let us go, but I said, well, they said, you understand what that means? I said, your land, or you don't have any. Yes, I said, we understand all that. So they said, oh, all right. And so we were taken off the rolls of the Seneca Nation. And then we didn't belong anywhere. And it took almost 5 years before they adopted us. So we were kind of in no man's land for 5 years. But then we were adopted. And the clan mother said, you have a choice here. You can be adopted into the clan that I want you to sit for, which was the turtle. I said, do I have an option? She says, yes, you do. She says, if you want to keep your clan, then the position that you sit for in the turtle will be temporary until we find somebody that's from the turtle to take your place. She says, but yes, you can maintain your identity as a wolf. And I did, as well as my youngest brother. So we were temporary. That was 55 years ago. 55 years on that council, temporary. It's hard to find leaders, very, very hard to find leaders that's willing to commit. Now, our system at Onondaga and the Haudenosaunee is still the old system. It's still the traditional system that was established probably 1,500 years ago. There's no elective system at Onondaga. There's no BIA. There is no government but us. Because of that, because we keep our way. It's not easy. And so I wanted to clarify the introduction, because he introduced me as a Seneca. I'm Onondaga, wolf. We have, on one side of our council at Onondaga, we have the Beaver Clan, Snipe Clan, that Little Bird and Long, Snipe Clan, Turtle Clan, a Wolf Clan that sits on this side of the house. And on the other side of the house, we work across, is a Deer Clan, a Bear Clan, and the Eel Clan. and the Hawk clan. And in the Seneca Nation, they have the same clans, but they had one more, and they have the Heron clan. And the different nations, the Mohawk Nation has 3 clans: Turtle, Wolf, Bear. And Cayugas have 6, and so forth. So it's not all the same across, but the clans are the same. And then what I found out over a period of time was that a wolf is a wolf is a wolf, whether I'm in New York or whether I'm in Arizona. There's a wolf clan, so that's my family. And then you have a wolf clan, my family. We're all one. So it's a broad family the way we do. And what I found out, I learned over a period of time, was how our system, the clan system, tied us to the earth. They're a brilliant, brilliant system, because we're tied to the earth. A wolf is my brother. I look after him. I worry about him. I think about him, his work. And the same with all. And when I traveled around, I found out that Navajo Nation, my goodness, they had a cloud clan, they had a wind clan, they had, but all tied to the earth. Brilliant. So we're relatives out there. Everything you see out there is our relatives. And close related. And I listen to the Lakotas in their prayers. At the end, they always say, all my relations. And when they say all my relations, they mean every fish that's swimming, every tree that's growing, every grass. That's our family. That's your family. It's our family. But our brother from across the sea, he's lost that relationship. Doesn't understand it, knows it's there, but lost it. And that kind of give him license to take advantage and do things that's to your own relative that you shouldn't do. In the Confederacy so long ago, when they put us all together, the peacemaker, the great peacemaker, gathered us long ago. It's a long story. I won't go into that because it's so long, but established our relationships and the clans. What he said to the leaders at that time, go into the woods and the first thing you see, come back and tell me. I saw a beaver. Henceforth, that's your family. I saw a snipe. Henceforth, that's your family. So he established that to us. And it's matrilineal. The women, our lines run with the women. Whoever the mother is, that's who you are. Not the father, the mother. And as you well know, the mothers think different than the men. They're concerned about life, they're concerned about family, they're concerned about things. And the men, they have other ideas sometimes, and they have other work as well. So there's always a balance. There's always a balance. But it takes a man and a woman to make a family, children. However, to look after children. And so the work is equal, as you know, but over all the years of my travel and so forth, I see the women work harder than the men. There's no doubt about that. They work harder than the men. And they kind of overlook our sometimes not growing up fast enough. They kind of, they have a lot of patience with us, luckily, fortunate for us. And so it's been a good relationship, a good family. It's a good balance. Look after responsibility of the earth here. That's our responsibility. And the two common laws that I see in my travels, I see that our people, and I say our people, I'm talking about Native people in these lands here, they have two common law, two rules. And the first law, the first rule is respect. Respect for yourself, respect for the nation, respect for life, respect for everything. That's a law, that's a rule. The second one is to share. Share what you have. Everything, if there's. That's a big law, that's a big rule to share. In the old days, a hunter would go out in the woods and he would find his mark and leave meat hanging in a tree for next person that comes through. He's sharing. And the youngest hunter, the first time, the first kill, he takes that meat and he goes to all the elders and he gives it to them. That's his first rule, first law, to share. And that's what our brother from across the water doesn't like. He's the opposite way. Mine, he says, me. It's hard for us to fight that, but we've managed to do that. Just 2 days ago, I was down to Yelm, where we had a traditional circle of Indian elders and youth meeting. It's our annual meeting, and we bring in the traditional leaders from all over the country. And we're hosted by a nation. This was Nisquallies was hosting us. And the McLeod family. And next year we're going to be hosted by the Northern Cheyenne Lame Deer. They have taken the staff, so that's where we'll be meeting next year. And to re-energize the nation and the people back to their traditions. I was very pleased to see the dancers and the songs here. It really raised my spirits to see that little boy. Boy, he was dancing. That's the future now. Sometime, not too long, he's going to be this big. He's going to take care of it. But he's got a good start. And that's to your credit that you keep those songs, you keep those dances. That's the foundation of us. That's our foundation, is our ceremony. That's who we are, to give thanks. So the two rules: to be thankful, to share, make sure, and respect. Respect for life, respect for everything, and above all, respect for yourself. Today's times, I've watched this change over a period of time. Like my elder brother here, we've seen a lot of changes. You know, I grew up early on at Onondaga when there was just one car there. The rest was all horse and wagon. I grew up in that horse and wagon. I could harness a horse. I could set up a wagon. I knew how to do that because you had to. That's what it was. And we raised all our own food. Everything, we grew everything, basically. I grew up in a kind of, this is in New York, central New York. Yeah. And I think I was 4 years old the first time I saw a white man. There was 4 of us. We were playing along the road in the bushes, and here comes a rag man. He's got a wagon and a horse, and he's a white man selling rags. And ooh, you scary to us. We were hiding in the bushes, and we watched him go by, you know. But he was an old man, and he had a white beard, and he had a black hat and a black coat. And we watched him. He didn't see us. We watched him go by. Ooh, you know. And we learned that our mothers would bargain with him for whatever it was, you know. So after a while, we got to know who he was. But that was the first time, because we were growing up in Onondaga. We never went anywhere but running around in the woods there. And we never played or on the road. We were always in the woods. That's where we were. We were swimming. We were out all day. We could feed ourselves out there. We knew what we could eat. We didn't have to go for lunch or nothing. We feed ourselves. The age groups run together, you know. We out there fishing, swimming, running, playing. It was really nice. I didn't realize how lucky we were to be able to have that kind of a life. I didn't know that. We didn't have much, you know. People were hungry a lot all the time. But you could go next door and you could get a carrot or a couple of potatoes or something. Kids run next door. You got a potato? Yeah. You know they're going to make some kind of food somewhere. You know. So everybody shared everything. And so it had a community. You could go in and out of anybody's house and they'll take care of you. You know, what's your mother's name? How is she doing? You know, I knew everybody. So we had this big kind of a family run. It's nice. It's not like that now. Things have changed. So when I was asked to take a council position, I was already working in New York City as a commercial artist. I had established a business. I knew advertising. And I was asked to come back and take leadership, help. That's pretty hard. Actually, it was probably why our marriage didn't last, to that decision to go home. And I did. So like I say, I've been learning. The first thing I had to do was pay attention before. That security there at Onondaga was always there. The chiefs were there, the clan mothers, everybody was. So you didn't worry about it because it was just there. But then when you began to take on that responsibility, then you go, whoa, this is a lot of work. It's a total commitment. And the traditional system was you don't receive any pay. There was no such thing 1,500 years ago. You had a duty and you had work, and that was what you did. And since we've kept that system, that's the way it is yet today. There's no payroll for our leaders. They take care of us, they do as best we can, because the things are different, but fundamentally, the rules, the laws are the same. And I think, from what I understand, that Six Nations is the last standing traditional government still in charge of land in North America now. Every other government, whether you're in Canada or the United States has an elective system. Not where I come from. And we have the first treaty with the blossoming United States, 1775. When the Continental Congress requested a meeting with us in the new headquarters called Albany, New York. That's where Mohawk Fire was at one time, that camp there. And of course, we know their father. So they were going to get ready for a big fight. But we saw the fight. We've been working with them for 400 years. And they asked us to join. And I'm going to make a point here, but it takes a little long, so you have to bear with me. And so at this time, they're getting ready to fight. And the Continental Congress, 62 members of the Continental Congress asked the Six Nation Confederacy to come and sit with them. And we did. It's a long story to that. I won't go through that, but we had a meeting. And at that meeting, they told us about the problems they were facing. And we knew about that because we knew the leaders. We were in constant discussion with them, whether it was in Maryland or whether it was in Maine, whether it was in Georgia, our leaders were there. So we knew what was happening. We were well aware. And there was a split in the Christian doctrine, the Catholics, and then you had the Church of England, which was not Catholic. They had split. And that split carried over into the colonies. So we were aware of that as well. And it was coming to a head, and it was 1775, so they asked us to join them. And our leader said, "We know your father. We've been dealing with your father for a long time. We know you. And we think that this coming fight, which we know is coming because our minds are split like yours. We have people thinking this way and that way. We're making preparations. So it's well known that probably one of the worst things you can do is step in between a family fight. Everybody knows you don't get your nose in there, otherwise they both turn on you. We say this is a family fight between you and your father. We don't think it's a good idea, and we had this discussion with your father just 3 months ago in Oswego. Same thing. And they said, good, because that was our second request. If you're not going to fight with us, don't fight against us. And we said, we will take that position, as we said to your father. We stand back in a neutral position. You settled this between yourselves, but you're in our land. There's no way. So at some point, you're going to see our men in the field on both sides. But when you see them there, remember that they're there as an individual. They're not representing their nation, nor are they representing the Confederacy. We're free people, and we can't tell people what to do, but you will see, and that's the way it was. And so I move up to 1983. You had a president at that time. He was a Hollywood actor. Remember him? And he was re-energizing the draft. You remember the draft? And that's what he did, you know. So all of a sudden our young men we're getting letters in the mail saying, report to your draft. I said, we're going to do this. He said, well, bring them to us. Don't ignore it. Bring me here. We'll fill it out, and we'll send it down to them and say, you can't draft our men. And so this went on for a while. And then we got a call from the United States Selective Service System saying, can we have a meeting with you guys? And we said, yes, of course. What's the subject? This is, your men are refusing our draft. We said, oh, good. We'll have that discussion. Please come up. So we set the time. We met with them Mother's Day, 1983. And they said, you set the time on Mother's Day. We said, every day is Mother's Day. Every day. So we had the meeting. And they said, we know what your position here is not new. We know that, but we don't know where is it? Where does it start? And we were ready. We had our men lined up. We had the wampum belts laid out. And we went back, 1744. And we told them we would talk that discussion in 1744 when Six Nations was presiding over a meeting in Lancaster, Pennsylvania about land, as usual, the colonies, and Six Nations was presiding because all the land was Indian land. And we were trying to protect the interests of our people, the nations, the land. So they were squabbling between themselves, the colonies. And one of the Onondaga chiefs stood up and he said to them, you people never going to amount to anything until you learn how to work together. Why don't you make a union like ours? The principle of peace. That's the principle of our peace. Equity, to be fair to everybody, and to be united. We're the first United Nations, Iroquois, way back, based on the women's side. The women are in charge of the clans. We have 5 leaders: clan mother, principal chief, deputy, faith keeper man, faith keeper female. That's in every clan. They have duties. Her duty is to find those leaders, choose those leaders. So it's the clan mother that chooses the leader. But it has to be ratified by consensus by the clan, and then ratified by consensus by the Council of Chiefs, and then finally ratified by consensus by the Six Nation Confederacy. So you just don't walk in there. And if you get chosen to be sitting there, you better think about your history, because they're going to know everything you ever did. And I didn't realize that. But then I was like, I said, oh my gosh. But the nations cut you a lot of slack. Anyway, 1744, this Onondaga chief said to them, you're just not going to, you got to work together. And in 1775, then when we met, the speaker for the Continental Congress said to us at that time, in 1744 in Lancaster, you advised us to make a union like yours. We are now taking your advice. That's where your United States started from. You don't know that. You haven't been told that. It's not in your history books. But it's in the history. It's in the congressional records of the United States. It's not figment. It's written down word for word what they said. We're going to make a union like yours based on peace, equity, union. And so I said I was going to make a point, and I come all the way around to that. But you have to know the history in order to understand the point. And so you'll find that most Indian nations and speakers have this way of doing things. They have to take you from the beginning so that you can understand. You can't just tell somebody. You have to show the process. And it was a great experiment. I would say, you know what the first flag was for the Continental Congress? Anybody here know the first flag? It's a pine tree. It's a pine tree. And what is the symbol for the Haudenosaunee? It's a great white pine. Peace. And when they called us, 1775, they said, "We want to rekindle our relationship under your great tree of peace." You don't know that. I'm telling you. That's your history. And we have treaties. After the Revolutionary War, and I won't go through that one, very hard fight. The first treaty that the new United States made was made in France, 1783, and that was the peace between England and the colonies, now the United States. The second treaty that the new United States made was with the Haudenosaunee, 1784, because they had to. We were a force. We were a power. 1784. And they said a lot of bad things happened, but let's forget that, and now we'll have a union. So we began that treaty. Another one, 1787, another one, 1789, 1790, 1794. Treaties between nations. And they stand every year delivered to our nations, the Six Nations, from the United States, treaty cloth. Every year. They know, they hold that treaty. And in 2016, they invited us to the White House and to renew the 1794 treaty, peace and friendship. So treaties are real. You have a very powerful treaty here. And all the work that this man has done, that's enormous work. That's your history. And where he started, 1823, going back, there's more history. And that starts with the Vatican. When the discovery of this land was made by a mercenary from Italy, carrying under the flag of Spain, when he landed, the year after, how was that? The year after he landed, the Vatican made a statement that they owned all the land, that the whole continents. They own that all now. And our people, well, I mean, you guys were catching fish over here. We were hunting. Nobody knew what they were saying. Made that declaration called the Doctrine of Discovery. It's just an announcement. We now own all this. Oh, really? Oh, oh yeah? And you know the history. Been violent. But all that right there, it's amazing. To me, I'm just dumbfounded at the work this man has done here. But back there's more work. And the Vatican is now contemplating rescinding that doctrine. But they don't all agree. I would say that they have a radical pope at this point. He wants to do what's right. I would also say that I think he's in physical danger for that position. He won't be the first pope assassinated by the so-called Holy See. Powerful group, long time. But anyway, there it is. And that brings us up to the contemporary times. So the discussion about peace and friendship, going back to those treaties that we have. Foundational to what we face in the future. Because this discussion and what we're looking out there now and what we're having the discussion is nature. Nature. We have affected the process of life in the world. We've affected it. And we don't have a wrench big enough to fix that. Ice is melting. The ice is melting fast, faster and faster. And so I would say that we have to put aside, and I'm talking now about the human family, can't be Indians or black people or yellow people or white people. It's our family, the human beings. We're a family. We come in all colors. We come in all sizes, but we're still one family. And if we're going to survive as a species, that's the way you have to think. All of that aside, we now have to work together for that little guy that was dancing so hard. That's our responsibility. Look after him. And that's, the meeting that a friend over there put together. That's the discussion that's been going on for a long time. This has been going on, but now, as they say, it's time to fish or cut bait. That's it. No second chances on this one. No second chances. We're in it now. We're in it. We're in climate change. It's going to go on, and it's going to get worse. And the only way we're going to survive as a species is to work together. Common cause. And remember the two laws, respect and share. If we follow those two laws, we got a chance. We have a chance. But it's got to be that way. 1950, I was 20 years old. And there were 2.5 billion people in the world. All told, the whole world, 2.5 billion people. And here we are like 68 years later. 7.6 billion people in the world within this last 68 years. Almost triple the population. Soon to be 8. Where's the water? Where's the food? Where's the land? Where's our relationship? We have responsibility to those people in Africa. We have responsibility to all those people. If you help them where they are, then they're not going to be moving. But water is the issue, and water is not adjudicated evenly around the world. So if you don't have water, you're going to go look for it. You know, we're pretty strong. We can go 70, 80 days without eating. We can starve a long time. Try to go 10 days without water. Try to go 4 days. You're going to go look for water. That's what you're looking at right now today. You mentioned the River Jordan. The River Jordan is down to 1/3 of what it was before. It's mud. Today, right now. There's no water there. You have to have a bigger vision. You have to think global, because this is a global problem. A global problem requires a global solution. You can't fix one side and not the other, because no, that's not the way nature works. Get all of us. So it's for our common good as a human species to try to survive this crisis that we brought on. You can't blame the trees. You can't blame the salmon. They didn't do that. It's us. You know, there's you guys know about Pogo? You know, Pogo, pretty smart. He said one thing, and I always remember what he said. I was reading it. He says, I have seen the enemy, and it is us. Pogo. Truer words can be said. So, my message then here is so thankful to see your dancers and your songs. Oh, it's a credit. That's a credit to your nation. Because that's where it is. That's the spiritual strength that you need there. That's where we have to go. This is a spiritual crisis, and it can only be a spiritual solution. So that's up to all of us here. Now, Tom and I have been in this for a long time, but we're not through. We're not through. The last time I spoke to the UN, I went like this. I said, don't let this fool you. No. Fight is on. Hard one. But we can do it. We can do it for this guy here. You can do it. You just got to share. And you just got to have respect. Those two can save the world. Donate.
Really happy to be sitting here with these elders I love and respect. I really want to thank you, Oren, for having a major influence on my life. Tom, Heiska. My Indian name is Sasiat. It means younger than Seattle. We come from one of the three sisters of Chief Seattle. I'm proud to know that I'm Island Hokomelem, mainland Hokomelem, Strait Salish, and Asuchi. I'm from Nanaimo and Katesy and Simiama, Nooksack, Lummi, Jamestown, Kalalam, Skagit, Duwamish, Snoqualmie. These are all the way that we were brought together through our traditional marriage in the past. They arranged the marriages so that we'd have alliances amongst our people. And I'm proud to know that I'm Sialwan. I practice the Native American Church, Peyote Church, Sweat Lodge, and I love to sing with the Shakers when I can. My mom was Catholic, and every time she put us into for the teachings, as soon as she left, we ran out the back door and headed for the woods. So that was the place to be, and we'd sneak back into church, so we'll be there when she picked us up. But born and raised on the Lummi Indian Reservation, had many opportunities to leave, but this is where I was raised. This is where my children and grandchildren will be raised. The question on global warming is a big one. Song, dance, ceremony, oral tradition, traditional knowledge, traditional medicine, legend, myth, folklore, symbology, in our spirit societies, in our traditional forms of government, and our extended family systems have allowed us to keep our awareness of who we are alive. And we fought termination, extermination, genocide, relocation in Christianity, and still survived. The United States, by law and policy, has sought to exterminate and eliminate our tribal awareness because they knew it connected us to the air, the water, and the land, the animals, the birds, everything. Our teachings taught us that we're the pitiful human beings. We're the last children of creation. And all things took a form on behalf, direction of the Great Spirit. But when they transformed, they gave us something, a gift, because we're so pitiful. We needed our older brothers and sisters to help us. And so the tree gives us something, the birds, the bees, the salmon, the clam, the crab, you name it, the bear, the wolf, the cougar, everything had power from the time of creation. And if we're really needing help, the Spirit was there for us to lift us up. And our Longhouse people, from the Longhouse of the Iroquois to the Longhouse of the island Hokomelem, and their teaching and sharing with us, the Straight Salish, we knew how to be lifted up through ceremony, song, dance, and spiritual teachings. We said it was schnupp. The worst thing you could say about somebody at one time was they had no teachings. It was so horrible you would whisper it. But you're not even supposed to whisper it. That's how bad it was to say something like that about somebody. But through our extended families and our kinship, we have a little teachings here and there, and collectively, we have a lot. I was always happy to know that the elders that say that tree will sing to you, but you have to do something. You have to live that life. You have to fast. You have to control what you see, what you hear, what you say, what you eat, what you breathe, what you feel in your heart, what you think in your mind, and how you pray, and the work you do with your hands and where your feet bring you. The elders were strict at one time that if you were really dedicated to these ways, you would become a somebody. The Spirit would help you. And so that's still alive today. And it's a reflection of how much of the commitment to that is lost and how much damage the United States and their religion has done to us in their politics and society by the manifestation of 60 to 80% of our children are involved in high-risk behaviors. suffering from generational, transgenerational historical trauma and oppression, economic depression. We've been attacked in every direction. The way we lived, the way we ate, the way we hunted, the way we fished, the way we worshiped, the way we spoke. Everything was unacceptable. Our grandparents and great-grandparents were confronted with the outside telling us everything about you is unacceptable. You have to be like us, walk like us, talk like us, worship like us, speak like us, think like us, work like us, live in houses like us, live in society like us, and make us your leaders. And so that's oppressive and oppressing to traditional peoples and traditional societies. You know, and if you become afraid to speak about your culture and your traditions and your beliefs, and at one time we had so much knowledge, it created a cosmology. We had an awareness that all things are connected through our spirit, through its spirit. And if we're real pitiful, something out there would take care of you. You don't kill off everything. As it was said, we had ethics, we had values, we had teachings, we had organized government and society. The diseases killed many of us off, but we still survived. That's why Chief Seattle said at one time, we numbered more than the stars in the sky, but that time is no longer. He was a child whose parents survived smallpox. These diseases came wave after wave, killing 90% of the people that were left each time. From the time of Cortez on, village after village perished, robbed of your parents, your uncles, your aunts, your grandparents, time and time again. Waking up and the whole village is dead. Coming back from hunting and fishing, the whole village is gone. You have to unite, start over, find somebody to marry, to start your community over. You know, and all of our communities are full of these stories of survival, reorganization and regrouping, regathering, starting over, sharing what teachings were saved from every trial before us. You know, we brought Emoto over here. He's gone now, but he taught and shared with the world that what you think will go right to the water and the bodies of the other person. Anger, hatred, or love, or respect. He said, water wants to be respected more than it wants to be loved. And he showed a picture of the earth to water, and it formed the crystals of love. Water that flows over the earth, through the earth, on the earth, that comes from the sky, will have those crystals. Water that's impacted by humanity breaks down and has no form. We are the polluters, the destroyers. And one time it's been said, the sky's darkened with waterfowl, geese, and ducks. The water was full of salmon and halibut, bottomfish, crabs, oysters, shrimp, and clams. Wherever we looked in the Northwest, there were plants in the water and up to the top of the mountain. We only worked 3 months out of the year, and we dedicated 9 months to spiritual celebration and sharing. You're only a great person if you gave it all away. But you still had rules that limited your harvest. You couldn't take too much. There were Siams of the family, leaders in the community that made sure that you were taught not to destroy, not to take more than you need. Now they have recorded songs of plants from the grass to the trees. Everything has a song, like our elders have said. Now they can record it. An alder sings different from a maple. A maple sings different from a cedar. A cedar sings different from a fir. And they say that they sing a song that says, I am sick, come and take me. And the bugs will come and take that plant out because it's sacrificing itself back to the earth. It's sick. In modern ways, we kill off the bugs and sell off the sick plants. But nature had its way. You know, and at one time we were taught that your first breath was sacred and your last breath is sacred. What you did in between with every breath is a measurement of what you're taught. It says how you lived your life. You know, I always tell people that Columbus got here and he said, "Una gente en Dios," one people in God, but he owed the Queen. And if he left that on the record, then the Pope would know. And if the Pope knew, he'd forbid the conquest of the Western Hemisphere because they're in Christian, in God people. So he had to take in Dios, in God, and create Indios. And we became Indians. And we've lived the lie ever since. I call it the first corporate lie. And it began the authorization of plundering and raping the environment and destroying the indigenous peoples that were connected to it. And that's significant. Now you see corporations under United Citizens. Corporations are citizens too. Corporations are people too. And so they can line the pockets of politicians and undermine all regulations and laws that protect the environment for your children and great-grandchildren. I'm sorry to say the Republican Party is the worst thing on the earth today for what they're standing for. They're sacrificing the future of the vision the Iroquois shared and helped create, known as popular sovereignty. We the people of the United States, we the people of the state, we the members of the Lummi Nation. It's all a part of what was taught in the beginning, that we hold our leaders accountable. They're disconnected from reality. You know, and I'm proud that we've been able to unite churches. Here's our colleagues right here, environmental groups, citizens groups, tribes, and stopped all 6 coal port proposals that were planned for the West Coast. United we stood. That's what the Iroquois Confederacy was about, united. We had an alliance before Vancouver came here with the Ho'okamalams and the Strait Salish, our relatives. We had to unite against our northern enemies about 1692. That's who was called to the Point Elliott Treaty, the alliance of the Duwamish and Suquamish. We knew who we were. But now you look around and the streams are full of silt. Just in the Lummi area alone, 100,000 truckloads of silt have flown out of the clear-cut mountains and filled Bellingham Bay. In my grandfather's time, that drop-off was just below Marietta itself. That was the drop-off, deep water. That little bank above Marietta used to have the waves crashing over it, going over the cars that went by it. In our lifetime, Bellingham Bay has been filled. We buy water from Lake Whatcom that everybody else has dumped their sewage into. 13 cases of E. coli every year. Fukushima is on our shores within 1 year. The tribes of the plains had to live the reality of no longer are there any buffalo. That should have been a warning. We should be planning for the day after salmon and seafood. Of course, the United States won't recognize Fukushima because it means the major collapse of all fishing economies around the Pacific Ocean. Unless you want to use a Geiger counter at your food table to test everything that comes out of the water. Hanford is leaking more and more radiation every day. We send all of our garbage to Kikichat. It's all washing. The wet runoff is a stream of poisons entering into the Columbia. I was talking to a group that says, you know, the difference between this energy, this is male, they say, is female energy. And they're saying that now you can take the garbage, the most polluted water, or cement, and break it down into its molecules and create energy with no carbon imprint. We got solar panels being opposed. We're the worst example. I used to always tell people, the United States is the pig of the world. We consume more, we want more, we use it faster and waste more than anybody else in the world. And we think that our life is the role model for all others. It's not. You know, I'm happy to know that in 2015, the Vatican issued a statement, an encyclical Laudato Si. Basically, the Pope was saying, we taught you that God created all things and gave you dominion over the world. What we should have taught you is that God created all things are sacred. Have respect for God's creation. Now it's too late. We may be too late. We need to find ways to undo the damage. Every church should start every sermon with those words. God created all things. All things are sacred. Respect God's creation. Just that handed down to the children from now on. But we live in a global society led by the United States that has no respect for the public trust. They don't care. They don't want to leave anything for their grandchildren or great-grandchildren, except for a world destroyed and polluted. The public trust doctrine's been around 1,500 years, and it's been oppressed and shoved away because it means you have to stop. Leave some for the future generations. And that's what our teachings were about. That's why the sky was so full of waterfowl and the rivers and streams and lakes were full of fish. Leave some for the future generations. Don't take too much. Now the deer and the elk and the wolf and the bear, the otter, you name it, are extinct, are going extinct. In our life daily, another thing has disappeared. We have to believe that our elders gave us something. They gave us teachings. They shared with us. They're the role models. You know, I know for the last 18 years we gave away totem pole after totem pole after totem pole. It's because if the Spirit gives you a gift, you have to share it, or it can be taken away from you. And myself and House of Tears Carvers, we must have given Lummi Nation 70 pieces of totem art. There's another 50 out there that we gave throughout all across the nation and up into Canada. You know, because it's the symbols, it's the stories, the legends, the myths, the teachings, that we have a relationship with the world around us. That's not just a bear or an eagle or a hawk. That's a symbol. Awaken. Because all races, red, black, white, and yellow at one time, were connected with the earth. When you're in the womb, you heard your mother's heartbeat. But somehow, as a society, we can't remember it, even if we all got together as the American Creed. But as Indian people, we have our drums and regalia, our rattles, our voices. We hear those songs. We hear that heartbeat. We're Mother Earth people. Mother Earth spirituality is still alive with us. It's still a part of our advice. We're not empty. And it's because of the strength of the intertribal teachings and the willingness to share. But how do you awaken a whole national society when even their religion advocates domination? When their politics are enriched by exploitation and guarantees another term in office? We gave a poll to Beaver Lake Cree because tar sands. Met this young lady, and her sister was thrown off the 33rd floor because she was an activist against the tar sands. And she was crying, and she made Chief Dan George's daughter cry, an elder. We heard that mother, that grandmother crying. And so we brought a totem pole to Beaver Lake Cree to tell them, we hear you, we stand with you, we unite in your campaign. We want you to know that we believe in your traditions and your knowledge. That was our goal. You know, when they say that if you keep sacrificing and willingly giving, the Spirit will have pity on you. You know, and the day before we were ready to leave, the ancestors came and they said, sing that song for us. They sat me down in a dream. I said, what song? They said, you know the song. I woke up singing that song. You know, and before that, in the 90s, a whale came to Lummi, and we tried to save her, a minke whale. And we prayed to be one mind, one spirit, to be able to lift that whale and move her into deep water. But time and tide were against her. We only could move her 20 feet. Even with the federal, state, and tribal enforcement threatening to prosecute us, we wanted the water to save that sister. She was crying. People were crying after she died because they heard her death song. She gave us a song. We sang that song up in Canada and in 2/3 of the United States also. All things have a song. We're just so insensitive we can't hear them anymore. We can't feel the world around us. We become indoctrinated. You know, I like the teachings of Dr. Gregory Kahiti in Native Science. He tried to explain that relationship, that this is a way of living with the world. It's a way of managing your relationships. This is a way of believing that your actions can be accountable and controllable through traditional teachings from one generation to the next. All of our stories are full of legends or teachings of sacrifice and control. You sacrifice and control your behaviors and your beliefs. And in the end, the Spirit will be generous with you. That song the elder said, I wanted to sing just one verse, if I may. And it's simple. But I feel like because we gave all these totem poles, see, the Spirit gave me that to share. You know, it's a manifestation of belief. And this is repeated over and over again all across Indian country. It's just that our culture and our spirituality have been attacked so much, we don't like to talk about it. The oppressors are listening. When my great-grandparents on my mother's side and great-grandparents on my father's side, they're both Siawan. They practice in the woods. But they sent runners over to watch, make sure the farmer in charge was asleep. They couldn't bring out the drums. They had to use sticks to keep practicing because it was the days of the Indian Religious Crimes Code. and you want right to prison, no trial, no jury, no rights, no lawyers, straight to prison. And the BIA said if your family died while you're in prison, it's your own fault because you're a heathen. You chose to do that. That happened to all the reserves. I was just talking to one of the ladies that works here. She's from Aleut, and she was reciting the damages done to her grandparents and great-grandparents, to her generation, the oppression, the beatings, how they'd watch their people almost beat to death, still in her lifetime, for being who they are. It's not over. The pain is still here. And I think the Native Indigenous experience is a reflection. Felix Cohen said, like the mariner's canary, the American Indian marks a shift from fresh air to poison gas in our political atmosphere. Our treatment of the Indian, even more than our treatment of other minorities, marks the rise and fall in our democratic faith. He had just studied all the laws of the United States that applied to Indian country, the schizophrenia, and he had an awakening. And that's what Orrin's talking about. Orrin's been busy in the United Nations all his life, and his elders before him. Woodrow Wilson modeled the League of Nations on the Iroquois Confederacy. That was the role model for the United Nations. I was proud to go there and find Orrin at the United Nations debating and helping draft and argue for the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And all aspects of our tribal existence and society are included in that declaration. We want to heal in all these areas you attacked and destroyed. These are inherent rights you have denied and oppressed. You have silenced our voice. We're down in Earth Summit. Couldn't even participate in Earth Summit. We had to go to Global Forum. No Indigenous voices at Global Forum. Just modern nation states, the conquerors, the exploiters, patting each other on the back and telling each other what a good job they're doing. But we know it's not true. Whoa, yeah, whoa, yeah, whoa, 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 yeah, whoa, 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 yeah, whoa, yeah, whoa, yeah, whoa, yeah, whoa, 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 yeah. Oh, ho, 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 ya, oh, he, oh, ya, oh, ya, oh, ho, ya, oh, ya, oh, he. Remember, we loved you, we let you go to the other side. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the verse. The elder said, sing that song. The elders on that side, the ancestors, they always talk to us. They advise us through dreams. You know, and I know that I've had a vision in '78, a real vision. I know I had near-death experiences. I know I see things past, present, and future through dreams. I don't know what goes on for you. I just know that the teachings of the elders is that I'm tied into it, and there's no way around it. And I really believe I dedicate myself to the protection of our people because of those dreams, those visions. I'm here for a reason. And I love our ancestors because they whispered in the ears of our elders who teach the children, like that little boy dancing to the heartbeat of Mother Earth. He was dancing to her heartbeat. That's what it's about. And until we know that, until you can hear your mother's heartbeat, you can't hear the heartbeat of the earth. It's all about the conquest. 17 Father Son God religions created in the last 5,000 years. 17 made